Hello, Smart Medicoz, and welcome to the deep dive. So think about your body's defense system. Acute inflammation, that's like the quick response after a cut, right? It deals with it, cleans up.
Exactly, the first responders.
But what if that response kind of gets stuck? It keeps going, starts causing damage itself. That's what we're diving into today. Chronic inflammation. It's this sort of silent, ongoing process, and really understanding it is, well, crucial for health.
And our mission really is to explore how that initial protective fire can turn into something damaging long-term, how inflammation, tissue damage, and repair attempts all get tangled up.
Okay, let's unpack that. What exactly is chronic inflammation? How is it different from that short, sharp, acute response?
Well, the defining thing is it's prolonged. We're talking weeks, sometimes months, where you have inflammation happening at the same time as tissue destruction and also attempts by the body to heal. It's this ongoing battle.
Weeks or months, wow.
Yeah, and it can creep up on you, what we call an insidious onset, or it might follow an acute episode that just never quite resolved. We see it a lot with persistent infections, certain immune diseases, or long-term exposure to toxins.
Okay, so it's not just a quick fight.
Right.
What keeps it going then? What are the main culprits keeping this, fire burning?
Good question. There are sort of three main groups of causes. First, you've got persistent infections. Think certain bacteria like mycobacteria, some viruses, fungi. These can sometimes lead to specific structures called granulomas, where immune cells try to wall off the infection.
Granulomatous, right.
Second, hypersensitivity diseases. This is where the immune system overreacts or attacks the wrong target. So autoimmune diseases like rheumatoid arthritis or MS fall here, and also allergies like asthma.
Makes sense.
And third, prolonged exposure to toxic agents. This could be something inhaled like silica dust causing silicosis, or even internal things like cholesterol building up in arteries leading to atherosclerosis.
Okay, those are the triggers. Now let's zoom right in. What's actually happening down at the microscopic level? Who are the main cellular players in this drama?
Microscopically, it looks quite different from acute inflammation. You see this infiltration mostly by mononuclear cells. We're talking macrophages, lymphocytes, plasma cells.
Not the neutrophils we see in acute inflammation mainly.
Exactly, though neutrophils can sometimes persist. But the hallmark is these mononuclear cells. Alongside this infiltration, you always see evidence of tissue destruction caused either by the persistent trigger or the immune cells themselves and attempts at healing, like new blood vessel formation, angiogenesis, and fibrosis, which is scar tissue forming.
Okay, so destruction and repair attempts happening simultaneously. You mentioned macrophages. Tell us more about them.
Right, macrophages are really central. They come from monocytes circulating in the blood. They're phagocytes, so they eat up debris and microbes, but they also orchestrate repair. The fascinating thing is they have like two main personalities.
Two personalities.
Yeah, depending on how they're activated. There's the classical, or M1 activation, triggered by things like interferon gamma. These M1s are aggressive killers, very pro-inflammatory. Then there's alternative, or M2 activation, often triggered by other signals like IL-4. These M2s are more involved in cleanup, anti-inflammation, and promoting repair and fibrosis.
So the same cell type can either fuel the fire or help put it out and rebuild?
Precisely. M1 kills microbes and amps up inflammation, while M2 focuses on healing and laying down scar tissue. And sometimes that balance goes wrong in chronic conditions.
What about the other cells you mentioned, the lymphocytes?
Lymphocytes are crucial too. T lymphocytes, or T cells, really amplify and direct the inflammatory response. They also form memory, which is why some chronic conditions persist. There are different types, like Th1 cells that activate those M1 macrophages, and Th17 cells that recruit neutrophils. B lymphocytes, which mature into plasma cells, produce antibodies. And you also sometimes see other players like eosinophils, especially in allergies or parasitic infections, and mast cells too.
It sounds like a complex crowd. Are they all talking to each other? How does that communication keep the inflammation going?
Absolutely. There's this constant crosstalk, a feedback loop. For example, T cells release signals like interferon gamma and TNF that recruit and activate macrophages.
Okay.
Then, those activated macrophages present bits of antigen back to the T cells and release their own signals like IL-12, which further activates the T cells. It becomes this self-sustaining cycle.
A vicious cycle.
Exactly. This continuous back and forth activation is really what drives chronic inflammation and can lead to significant tissue damage. And those granulomas we talked about, it just keeps perpetuating itself.
So bringing this all together, why is understanding this microscopic battle so important for us for our overall health?
Well, understanding this interplay, the mononuclear cells, the ongoing destruction, the fibrosis, It's absolutely crucial because it explains the why behind so many major diseases. Autoimmune conditions, chronic infections, damage from toxins, they often share these underlying chronic inflammatory mechanisms.
Right.
It really highlights how the body's own protective systems, when they stay switched on for too long, can paradoxically become the source of the problem, contributing directly to disease pathology.
So it's far more than just lingering discomfort. Chronic inflammation is this really complex, persistent immune response deeply shaping our health landscape.
It is. And, thinking about this raises a really important question for the future. Now that we understand these pathways better, how can we start thinking about ways to gently nudge these powerful